Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Cassie Fox. I'm back for another week of talking with you guys about some taboo, creepy stuff. So, I think this week we're gonna talk about Ouija boards. Yes, we're doing it. We're going in. Now, Ouija boards are one of the most taboo subjects that you come across when you're discussing the paranormal. Of all the subjects regarding the unknown, people seem to harbor like the strongest black or white opinion on Ouija boards for some reason. You get the people that are like, oh my gosh, don't touch it, it's crazy, oh it works, it's definitely real, it's the spirits. And then you get the other side of people going like, this is ridiculous, there's no way that a toy can communicate with the dead. So if you're one of those people that doesn't believe in it, you might want to skip this video. I try to bring in science into the explanation of it, but this isn't the video for you. Like, I'm just gonna be straight. So here we go. Now, whether you believe in them or not, though, you'd really be hard-pressed to find anybody on the planet that hasn't seen or heard of a Ouija board. Between Hollywood movies and really badly produced YouTube videos and creepypastas and also those really scary stories that your older siblings like to tell you when your parents aren't home, even to seeing it on the shelves of the toy section at Walmart. They're everywhere. Now, if you don't know how a Ouija board is supposed to work, it's a board. There's letters A through Z on it, there's hello, goodbye, yes or no, and numbers 1 through 10. Along with the board, you have something that's called the Planchette, which is a smaller piece of wood or plastic that's heart-shaped and has a circular piece of glass at one end so that you can see through it. And it moves across the board with your fingers on it. When you ask questions, it sort of spells out the answer for you. Now, the whole idea of this is that there is a spirit or maybe a deceased relative that's coming through the board and answering your questions. So where did this thing come from? It seems a little sinister to consider it being invented and produced by the big box toy stores. And the truth is, the Ouija board was not intended to be a toy. And for a long time, people didn't even know how the Ouija board originated. And some people said that it was like a tool used by the ancients to contact the spirit world and the gods, and that's a load of crap. That is a falsehood, my friend. The Ouija board actually originated during the mid to late 1800s when the Spiritualist Movement was on the rise. Now, if you're not familiar, the Spiritualist Movement became a thing during the Victorian era. It was practiced in the United States and England, and people used it as a form of entertainment and also insight and maybe, dare I say, educational, to look into the beyond. The practice centered around the use of tarot cards and oracle boards and crystal balls and channeling and automatic writing and all the cool things like that in order to contact another dimension or the other side where the dead people are. It sounds really weird, but it was actually a very popular form of entertainment back in the day. The Victorians were obsessed with the idea that they could gain extra wisdom about the world and the universe from the other side and from deceased relatives. And it was also really comforting during a time when the life expectancy was no more than 50 for your family members, so I can understand it. Now, like I said, spiritualism was actually a form of entertainment at first, but now today it still exists and it's actually an official religion. If you'd like me to do a video on spiritualism, I would be so happy to do it because I know a lot about it, so let me know in the comments. Now, the first Ouija boards were actually referred to as talking boards or witches boards. There was a few other names, but those were the two main ones. Now, they went through several different designs until they actually ended up being the Ouija board that we have today. But in 1890, Elijah Bond, Charles Kennard, and William A. Maupin decided to patent a talking board and market it as a toy. Now, one of the most crazy things about this board is how it got its name. Now, I've always wondered this too because Ouija and the way it's spelled versus the way it's pronounced is just kind of weird, and like, how did they come up with that? How did it go from talking board to Ouija board? Well, when these guys decided to apply for a patent for this toy, they couldn't come up with the name either. They didn't want to call it talking board because they didn't want to get sued by anybody who was already using the mechanism in a show. And yeah, so what they decided to do is actually ask the board what it wanted to be called. Oh man, this gives me chills. They asked the board what it wanted to be called, and it spelled out OUIJA. And they were like, what? They couldn't figure out if it was just a fluke or what had happened, so they asked the board, what does that even mean? And the board answered again, and it said, it means good luck. Now, once the patent was cleared, the Ouija board took off. The company grew so rapidly. And within just a couple of years, for some reason, the three main owners and investors backed off, and the company was handed off to a man who worked in the factory. And his name was William Fuld. Now, William Fuld was really, really into the Ouija board, and he loved the company. He really invested his heart and soul into it and really believed in the product. And he actually would ask the board for advice on how to run the company and where he, like, what cities he should expand to and stuff like that. And the board would answer him. And like I said, the company just continued to grow and grow until one day he asked him where he should build a new factory, and it told him. And disturbingly enough, Fuld died at that factory during a freak accident when he fell off the roof. Like, yeah, he fell off the roof of a building that the board told him to build. Nope, 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 nope. So now we're 120 years later, and the Ouija board has blown up, mostly due to the success of blockbuster movies such as The Exorcist. But scientists would argue that the board actually doesn't work the way that we think it works at all. They think that it is due to a subconscious moving of our muscles on the planchette, so we're technically subconsciously moving it where we want it to go. And this phenomenon is referred to as the ideometer effect, which is the subconscious muscle movements without the volition of the brain, or the conscious mind, sorry. However, I will go ahead and argue that there are a flood of reports around Ouija board phenomena that have nothing to do with your hands being on the board. I'm talking door slamming and extreme changes in temperature. Also, some people claim to be slapped or scratched by invisible entities when using the board. Candles will blow out. Electrical problems will occur in the house. Items around the board seem to move on their own. So, like, explain that. Sorry, I'm really like pro science, but this is my one exception, guys. Ouija boards are about as real as it gets for me, so sorry for the obvious bias. In extreme cases, people claim to be slapped or scratched by invisible entities after using a board. Also, demon possession is claimed numerous times. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a YouTube video or even like a story about somebody using a Ouija board without somebody in the group getting possessed. Like, it's almost inevitable. There are even cases of users injuring or even murdering people after using the board, and they claim to have no memory of it afterwards. In the UK, a mother and daughter were actually using a board regularly, and they ended up dismembering their dog, I think, or maybe the dad did that, and then the mom and daughter actually... Okay guys, I'm sorry, if you hear like munching sounds, it's not like a ghost, it's me trying to bribe my dog to stay in the same room with me, because I just like really freaked myself out for some reason. Okay, I need to like calm down, my heart's like racing. I'm just freaking myself out, like we're fine. In the UK, a mother and daughter actually set fire to their house in an attempt to kill themselves before the demon that they were talking to killed them. Now, I'm not going to talk about demonic possession today. It's something that I don't feel like I'm ready to talk about on camera, so like, sorry, hope you're cool with that, but that's a discussion for another day. Now, out of all the stories of negative experiences, we have one name that tends to come up over and over and over again. Oh, my heart needs to stop pounding. This is actually really annoying. So the name that comes up over and over and over again is Zozo. I'm gonna try not to say it any more than that. So I know it sounds like a pretty silly name, but if you do research on it, it is not silly at all. It is serious stuff if you believe in the paranormal, so just bear with me for a second. So this name comes up a lot over many years and kind of across the world in some cases. Sometimes he appears in the middle of a conversation when you think you've been talking to someone else, and then suddenly he'll take over the conversation. Sometimes he presents himself in the beginning of your session with a Ouija board, and other times he actually pretends to be your dead loved one, and then it comes out that he was lying to you the whole time. And people have asked him, like, well, if you're not my dead relative after all, how are you able to answer those questions that only they would have known? And he answers with, I read your mind. That's how I knew. People report that when you do ask his name, the planchette will move back and forth from Z to O, like forever, like multiple times until you ask it another question. And that's how people have named this entity. People actually claim that you're unable to end a session with this thing. That it will sometimes haunt your house afterwards and crazy things will be happening. And there's actually if you guys know the show Paranormal Witness, there's actually, I think there might actually be 2 episodes dedicated to this thing. And they're actually available on YouTube, and I just watched them, and they're pretty decent. People claim to experience things in their home after they've talked to him, and they also just feel this heavy weight of just dark, negative energy around them for weeks and sometimes years after their experience with the Ouija board. Alright, so if you're still watching, like, let me give you a couple pointers if you're still crazy enough to try one of these things. I looked up a few rules from other people, and then I'll give you some of my own advice at the end of it. Rule number 1, never, ever use the board alone. Like, I can't stress that enough. That is number 1. Do not use this thing by yourself. Do not make your own. Don't do that. I've tried that. Don't. I know friends that make their own. Stop it. Stop doing it. Just don't. Never, ever, ever use a board if you are emotionally compromised. And that goes for like being upset, being sad, mourning a dead loved one, maybe even being angry. Don't use it. My personal advice is do not use it if you are prone to depression or bipolar disorder or anything like that. Like, don't get mad at me if you have a mental illness right now, because I have bipolar disorder. So this is just coming from me. This is like one bipolar person to another. Don't use the Ouija board. Do not let the planchette count down on the numbers, like from 10 to 1, do not let it count down, because legend has it that if it gets all the way down, the door opens and you're releasing spirits into this world. So just like, stop it. If the planchette moves like to the 4 corners of the board, you are talking with a negative entity. And if it moves in a figure 8, you're probably talking with Zozo. Do not mock the board. Don't be that jerk. Don't do that. That's how you get possessed. A little warning, you can become addicted to this board. Sometimes the board will give you answers that maybe things come true, that it predicts, and it starts to feel like you have power, and you do not have power when you're using a Ouija board. And that power is the thing that becomes addictive, and you'll want to use it all the time. And eventually your friends are going to be like, dude, we don't want to do this. And you're going to want to play with it by yourself, and then you're just going to, we're going to have a Reagan situation on our hands, and nobody wants to deal with that. Don't use it in a graveyard. Like, this is me yelling at like 21-year-old me. Don't ever use a Ouija board in a graveyard. Like, are you crazy? Are you crazy, 21-year-old Cassie? Now, I didn't know this. Apparently the proper way to dispose of a board after you're done with it is to break it into 7 pieces, sprinkle it with holy water, and then bury it. And I never knew that. I was actually told by like a superior that I should burn it, which, I mean, I never have burned one, like, thank goodness, because it says here that if you burn it and it screams, like, because sometimes they scream, and it screams and you hear the scream, you have like a certain number of days or hours or something to like live, like you're gonna die. Like, it's like watching that Ring video. Alright, so those are like the basic rules that I found on the internet. My personal advice, if you feel like using a Ouija board, is very simple. Don't do it. Do not. Like, there are other ways to explore paranormal things without opening that doorway, because, and this is where people that don't believe in stuff are gonna like leave me hate comments, and like, that's fine. You know what, that's fine. You believe what you want to believe. I respect you for it. Please try to respect me for what I believe. I believe that when you start looking at this stuff, when you see them, they see you. And I believe the door swings both ways, and that's why we have to be very, very careful about how we handle things like this. I'm not saying don't seek truth. I'm not saying don't seek knowledge. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying try to do it in the safest way possible for you and the people around you. Alright, now that I have sufficiently freaked myself out, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to this channel. Like, we've got a nice little group going on, and it's a cool little party in the comments section. I love hearing what you guys have to say. If you guys have any crazy Ouija board stories, like, leave them in the comments. I cannot wait to read them. You have no idea. And if you guys like this video, like more of like the ghosty paranormal kind of stuff that I talk about, let me know, because I am kind of like, when I was little, I wanted to be a demonologist, like, it's real. So let me know if you like this. I would love to talk about more of this stuff. If you want to hear my personal stories with Ouija boards and ghosts and graveyards and stuff like that, like, I was a weirdo in high school, I am more than happy to tell you my stories. So yeah, subscribe. I love you guys so much. I can't wait to talk to you again next week, and have a good day. Bye!